My son gave me two choices: serve his fiancée, or leave my own home quietly. I smiled. Not out of agreement, but out of disbelief. Then I stood up, reached for my suitcase that had been packed days ago, just in case, and walked out without another word. The table behind me was still set for three. The casserole was warm. The cranberry pie untouched. The chair across from mine? Empty, as it had been for years. I folded the napkin on my lap again, shaping it into a neat triangle with trembling fingers. Not because it needed folding, but because the silence in the room was deafening and I needed my hands to forget that. The candle I'd placed at the center of the table, still unlit. I couldn't bring myself to light it. Not tonight. The house was soaked in the scent of rosemary chicken, slow-cooked apple cider, and that old familiar furniture polish I hadn't touched since last Christmas. I had dusted every frame on the mantel today. Even the faded photo from Acadia, our last summer together. He used to laugh so freely in that photo. That version of him didn't give ultimatums. I still slept on his side of the bed. Not out of habit, but because the weight kept me from drifting too far into the emptiness. When the grandfather clock struck 6, a draft crept under the back door. I checked the driveway again. Nothing. No headlights. No tires crunching gravel. Still, I poured water into 3 crystal glasses, straightened the cloth napkins one more time, and sat. My eyes drifted to the crooked postcard on the fridge from Dolores, my sister. I hadn't opened it, but I didn't need to. If it ever gets too heavy, our doors are open. Love, D. I glanced at the clock again. 643. At 658, the front door opened. No knock, no mom, just boots scuffing against the welcome mat I crocheted last winter. Travis stepped in like a stranger checking a meter. Windbreaker. No scarf. Phone in one hand. Gaze fixed on the floor. Sorry, traffic, he muttered, already scrolling. Behind him swept in Sabrina. No knock either. No pause. Just a gust of perfume and attitude. She moved like a woman walking through someone else's home during an open house. Oversized designer coat. Faux fur collar. And a handbag that whispered more money than I made last year. Her belly now round, 6, maybe 7 months, but she moved like she didn't care. Her eyes scanned the ceiling. Not the table. Not me. Still got those popcorn tiles, huh? She said, with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. I stood. Welcome, I said, voice steady despite the crack in my chest. Dinner's ready. Travis dropped his phone on the bench and shuffled behind her. Smells good, he said flatly. Sabrina's heels echoed on the floor. You cooked all this? A small laugh escaped her. That's cute. I said nothing. Just gestured to the seats. We ate in silence, if you could call it that. The scrape of utensils and shallow breathing filled the space where memories used to live. Then Travis cleared his throat. So, Sabrina and I were thinking we'd stay here for a bit. I didn't lift my eyes. A bit? Just until after the baby comes, he added quickly. I reached for the jug, poured water into his glass. You have your apartment. It's small. Noisy, he replied. Sabrina needs peace. A real home. You know, family energy. Sabrina smiled, her voice light and polished. And actual meals. Not just takeout and cereal. My grip on the jug tightened. I thought this was just a dinner, I said calmly. It is, Travis said. But it felt like the right time to talk. I looked at him. Really looked at him. To talk about what? He exchanged a glance with her. She gave a small nod. You have this whole house to yourself, he said gently. And we're building a future. Doesn't it make sense? I set the jug down. The house was never too big, until now. Until I was told I'd need to earn my place in it. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I smiled. Then I rose, walked past them both, and picked up my suitcase from where I had quietly placed it near the stairs earlier. Without a word, I stepped outside, leaving behind the warm casserole, the untouched pie, and a house that no longer felt like mine. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable somewhere quieter, Travis said, his voice too soft, like he was breaking bad news. You know, like Skyview. One of those places with nurses and classes. You always loved art. I stared at him. My fork hovered midair. You want me to leave my home? I asked. Not the transition, my home? Just for a while, he added quickly. Or, if you'd rather stay, maybe you could help out around here. Just until Sabrina's back on her feet. Sabrina chuckled. At least those homes have heating and nurses, right? I set my fork down. Slowly. Deliberately. Travis gave a half smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. You'd be more comfortable there, he said. This house is too much for you now. Silence settled like dust on old furniture. I stared at the cranberry pie. It had taken me 2 hours. My hands trembled halfway through, and I gripped the spoon so hard my knuckles ached, just to stop them from shaking. I wanted to tell him that. I didn't. He had called it the house, not my house. As if history could be rewritten, as if names etched in woodbeams meant nothing. You've both made yourselves at home, I said softly. Just don't expect me to serve. By morning, the house had changed. My grandmother's recipe box was gone. In its place a sleek chrome toaster, humming with newness, still wrapped in its protective film. The countertop, once cluttered with handwritten cards and folded dishcloths, shone cold and lifeless, like a showroom. The air felt different. Not cold from the frost, but something deeper. Like the walls had exhaled and decided not to breathe in again. I opened a drawer beneath the microwave, reaching for my tea tins, hand-labeled with names like Earl Grey and mint chamomile. Gone. Replaced with uniform tins, unopened, untouched. The pantry was a stranger. The cloth sacks I'd arranged with care were shoved behind snack boxes and prenatal vitamins. A bag of heirloom beans, ones I'd brought back from Maine 2 summers ago, was ripped open and spilling onto the floor. I bent to pick them up. This place smells old, Sabrina's voice drifted in. Not vintagey old, dusty. She entered, her pregnant belly leading the way, phone in hand. Do you keep mothballs in here or something? It's cedar, I whispered. Well, it's not baby safe. Just saying. She reached into a cupboard. We're going to need to repaint this whole kitchen. These colors are depressing. She pulled out a chipped ceramic mug, his mug. My husband's. We never fixed the crack in the handle. He said it gave the cup character. I watched her toss it into a cardboard box labeled donate or toss. I'll take care of those, I said. She blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. Sure. Whatever works. Travis walked in, earbuds in, motioning with his hand. Can we keep it down? I've got back-to-back calls. He disappeared again before I could respond. I stood there in the hallway. Frozen. Sabrina hummed as she rearranged furniture like she was staging a house for sale. The scent of rosemary was gone, replaced with plastic wrap and packing tape. Behind the salt tin, I found a photo, Dolores. One hand on her hip, the other gripping a paintbrush. Laughing, I remembered what she once told me: some spaces keep you small if you let them. I hadn't understood then. I did now. After lunch, I took out the trash. The bag was heavier than usual. Something clinked inside. Curious, I opened it. There it was. My grandmother's recipe box. Upside down. Bent at the edges. Cards poking out like fallen feathers, corners smudged with cinnamon and thyme. Next to it, the chipped mug. I didn't cry. I just picked them out, carefully, brushed off the breadcrumbs, carried them inside, unsure where they belonged anymore. That evening, while Sabrina napped and Travis talked through closed doors, I slipped on my coat and stepped outside. The wind bit my cheeks, but I didn't care. I walked 3 blocks, my feet knowing the way, even if my memory didn't. Harriet Steiner. The bell above the door jingled. Cheryl looked up from behind the counter. Miss Meredith, she said warmly. Hot cider, right? I nodded. Still remember? Of course. You and Mr. Langley always came in this time of year. I sat at the window booth. A young couple laughed over pancakes nearby. Outside, a boy in a red jacket chased a dog through golden leaves. Cheryl returned with the mug. Everything okay at home? She asked gently. I wrapped my hands around the warmth. Getting there, I said. On the table, someone had left a newspaper folded open. My eyes caught an ad bordered in snowflakes. Skyview's winter art program. Rediscover what you left behind. I stared at the words. My cider grew cold. That night, back home, the silence was sharp. I went upstairs. Opened my nightstand drawer. Took out a small notepad. The pen dragged as I wrote, slow, deliberate. When I called Skyview, a woman answered. Skyview Estate, good evening. How may I assist you? Her voice was honey stirred into tea, steady, warm, unhurried. And for the first time in months, I exhaled. I sat up straighter in my chair, tucking one leg beneath the other, as if bracing myself. Outside, snow had started falling just after sunset. It tapped gently against the windows, soft, rhythmic, like fingers knocking with a secret. A hush followed, as if the world was waiting for me to decide something important. I wore my thick wool robe, the one with a frayed seam on the pocket and the scent of cedar clinging faintly from an old sachet. The lamp beside me flickered once, hesitated, then held its light. Even the silence felt full, like it was listening. I reached for the phone, the weight of it heavier than usual. My fingers trembled just slightly as I pressed the numbers. I'd like to ask about availability, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it came from someone else. Yes, ma'am, came the gentle reply. Are you looking for independent living, or assisted independent? Private suite, perhaps? No shared dining, I said quietly. My heart beat louder than my voice. You're in luck, she said. A south-facing corner unit just opened. Fireplace, private garden, second floor for added peace. My eyes flicked toward the nightstand. The postcard lay on top, edges softened by time. Dolores's looping signature stared back at me. I traced it earlier with my thumb, folded it like a secret, then tucked it into my wallet like a compass pointing me forward. Could you send me a brochure? I asked. Of course. And if you're ready, I can prepare a quote for full payment. You'd qualify for our long-term resident rate. A silence followed, but it wasn't empty. It was the kind of silence that holds breath. Yes, I whispered. Please prepare it. She asked for my email, an old address I hadn't used since retirement. As she confirmed the details, I leaned in, barely audible. Would it be possible to move in before Thanksgiving? A few keystrokes echoed through the line. The suite will be ready by the 22nd, she said. I'd like that. She promised to call back to finalize the papers. I hung up gently, as if the sound might disturb the fragile calm settling around me. Then I reached under the bed and slid out the old shoebox. The lid creaked open like a voice from the past. Inside, my husband's ledgers. His careful, blocky handwriting still etched across every page. I ran my fingers over the cover. His quiet confidence lived in every column of numbers. I flipped to the final page, drew in a breath, and pulled out a stenopad. I wrote a name I hadn't spoken aloud in years. Mr. Leland. Our family attorney. Trusted. Steady. The rotary phone in the hallway still worked. I dialed slowly, each turn of the dial like unlocking a memory. His assistant answered. Tell him Meredith Langley would like an appointment. Tomorrow, if possible. Just as I hung up, a knock interrupted my thoughts. Mom? Travis's voice came through the door. Have you seen my tablet? I think I left it in the kitchen. I cracked the door open. Light spilled in, haloing him like a child caught between dreams. Pajama shirt askew. One sock missing. Try the couch cushions, I said with a tired smile. Oh. Right. Thanks. He was already absorbed in his phone as he walked off. I returned to my room, where the snow was thicker now, softly swallowing the world outside. The house was warm, but I felt the chill of change deep in my chest. My phone buzzed. A message from Dolores. Skyview will feel like breathing again. I didn't reply. Just smiled. I pulled out a sticky note, wrote a single word, and pressed it to the mirror. Departure. Then I zipped the suitcase. It didn't creak. It whispered its time. I sat on the bed a moment, hands on the worn leather. This suitcase had been with me through everything: our honeymoon in Oregon, the college tour with Travis, the funeral in Ohio. Now, one final journey. Not away, but toward. Beneath the sticky note, I added a date and time in careful ink: 22nd 10 a.m. I didn't need the reminder. But I wanted to face it. By mid-morning, I was on Main Street. The sky sagged low and gray, the air thick with unspoken promise. Leaves curled in gutters like forgotten letters. I walked briskly, gloved hands clutching my purse strap like an anchor. Leland Associates sat tucked between a stationery shop and a shuttered barber shop. The brass handles were still there, untouched by time. Inside, the scent of varnish and paper greeted me. Mrs. Langley, Mr. Leland stood, calm as ever. I've taken care of everything. As we discussed. He slid a folder toward me. Inside, documents. Transfers. The foundation charter. The Langley Art Grant, I read aloud, fingers brushing the embossed lettering. He would have liked this. Mr. Leland nodded. He believed in quiet acts of meaning. You're honoring that. I signed. My name. My hand. My choice. As I stood to leave, he looked at me gently. You're doing the right thing, Meredith. I know. Doing the right thing, I told him once, can feel a lot like abandoning everything you used to call home. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. When I returned, the house felt colder than when I left. Not in temperature, no, but in that deep, aching way a once loved room starts to distance itself. Like it no longer whispers your name with kindness. I set the suitcase by the door, upright, ready. In the kitchen, Saturday night's casserole dish sat clean on the drying rack. I dried it gently and tucked it into the cupboard. I knew it wouldn't be needed here again. Sabrina stood by the fridge, one hand balancing her phone, the other a bowl of dry cereal. We're out of the prenatal vitamins, she said casually, not even glancing up. Can you grab some next time you're out? I stepped around her without answering, pulled open the drawer with the pens and notepads, and retrieved a single envelope. My reply was calm. Soft, even. "You'll have to manage without me." She blinked, confused, as though I'd spoken a foreign language. Upstairs, I heard Travis's voice, loud and sharp. "The house is worth more than that, if she'd just sign the damn thing over." I froze at the foot of the stairs. He didn't know. Not yet. In my bedroom, I placed the envelope gently on the desk. My handwriting was firm, every stroke deliberate, to be opened after my departure. Inside, I left no accusations. No bitterness. Just facts. The deed transfer. The art grant approval. The termination of shared account access. A simple reminder of choices made. And not made. As dusk began to fall, I returned to the dining room. I lit the candle that had stayed untouched the night they arrived. This time, I lit it not for dinner, but for closure. I didn't set the table, didn't prepare a meal. Just let the flame glow, steady, unbothered. Around me, the house pulsed with unfamiliar noise. Laughter from a sitcom I didn't recognize. A bag of chips rustling open. None of it belonged to me anymore. But I sat with my tea beside the candle. And for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. Skyview. The name of the place was fitting. Sunlight poured through wide windows, laying golden threads on the floor. Outside, the last leaves clung to brittle branches, trembling, stubborn. Inside, everything moved slowly, intentionally. No one rushing to prove their worth. I wrapped my fingers around a warm ceramic mug, cinnamon and clove rising with the steam. A piano played softly in the corner. Down the hallway, someone hummed in harmony with the choir. No yelling, no judgment, just peace. Dolores appeared beside me, wrapped in a handmade shawl. She leaned close and whispered, "Told you it would feel like breathing again." I smiled. "You were right." She nodded toward a long table where residents were painting orchids on canvas. "After brunch," she said, "you're joining them." "Is it mandatory?" I teased. "No," she grinned. "But I'll guilt you into it anyway." The Thanksgiving brunch was simple. Roast turkey slices, cranberry compote in delicate bowls, and cornbread muffins warm enough to melt the butter. We didn't go around saying what we were thankful for. We didn't have to. It was there, in every shared smile, every pass the sugar. Every gentle question about grandkids, garden boxes, or favorite hymns. After the meal, I walked the greenhouse corridor. Orchids bloomed in bold defiance, white, violet, sunlit yellow. From the tote Dolores had given me my first night, I pulled out a sketch pad. My hand trembled slightly as I drew, years of silence melting into lines. The petals came out uneven, but they were mine. Back at the house I once called home, the kitchen lights were off. Dishes cluttered the sink. Unopened mail leaned against a vase someone had knocked sideways. Travis stood in the living room, holding a folder with shaking hands. "What do you mean it's not in my name?" His voice cracked. Mr. Leland, the attorney, calmly adjusted his coat. "The transfer was finalized. It's no longer yours." "To who?" Travis demanded. "It doesn't matter now," Leland replied. "You're not listed." "That's impossible." Travis fumbled through the last page, then stopped cold. There it was, my signature. Behind him, Sabrina folded her arms tightly. "I'm not raising a baby in someone else's leftover life," she snapped. "You think I planned this?" Travis shouted back. "She's punishing me." Leland didn't flinch. "No. She just stopped being your plan B." Travis crumpled into the couch, hands over his face, caught somewhere between shock and shame. Back at Skyview, the hallways were dim and soft, lit only by sconces shaped like open books. I sat by the window, sipping a second cup of tea. Outside, snow had begun to fall, slow, deliberate. Dolores passed by, tapping the bulletin board. "Next week, we're making hand-tied wreaths," she said, not breaking stride. "You better sign up." I raised an eyebrow. "Do I get extra points if I make two?" She smirked and disappeared down the hall. When I returned to my suite, something pale lay just inside the door. I bent to pick it up. There was no envelope. No name. Just a folded sheet of paper left on the counter like a whisper that hadn't found its voice. I bent down, picked it up gently. The paper was worn, soft, creased, weathered, from being carried too long in someone's coat pocket. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, but familiar. The kind of familiar that made your stomach clench before your mind caught up. Blue ink. Pressed down like someone had tried too hard not to give up. Just my suite number on the front. No name. No return address. Nothing but wait. That morning, snow had come early, soft flurries floating past the Skyview windows like dancers without music. I stood beside the orchid planter. One bloom fully open. The rest still curled in tight green fists, waiting. I didn't open the letter right away. I set it on my desk. made a pot of chamomile, and waited. Waited until the tea had gone cold and the silence had stretched just long enough. When I finally unfolded the paper, the voice on the page found me before the signature ever could. "Mom," it began. "I don't know if you'll read this. Or keep it. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to write." He wrote at long shifts at a supply warehouse. His fingers blistered, his breath fogging in the morning cold. A tiny room with a cot he assembled himself. A dented percolator. Silence thicker than coffee. "I go to meetings now," he wrote. "They help. Sometimes I tell people. I used to think love was a currency. That if someone stopped paying, it meant they stopped caring. But now I get it. You didn't stop loving me. You stopped letting me spend it recklessly." He didn't ask to come home. Not for a place to stay. Not for money. Only this: "If I ever see you again, maybe you could look at me like a man. Not just someone who disappointed you." There was no name at the end. Just one final line, lighter than the rest. "I understand now." I folded the letter once. Then again. I opened the drawer beside my bed, where my husband's old notes still lived, scribbled conference papers, the letter he once tucked into my suitcase before a trip. "Call me when you miss me." I placed my son's letter beside them. I didn't read it twice. That afternoon, the Skyview Community Hall shimmered with quiet life. Handmade snowflakes hung from the ceiling. A paper fireplace glowed with orange tissue flames. Stockings knitted by old hands were strung with care. Dolores stood by the cider table, cracking jokes about spiking the punch if anyone under 70 showed up. Her laugh warmed the room more than any heater could. Nora, the youngest in our art group, hovered near her easel, twisting the hem of her sweater. She had soft brown curls and a nervous energy that reminded me of a version of myself I had long forgotten. "I saved this one for you," she said, eyes wide. The painting was a watercolor, soft blues and grays. A lone orchid, reaching toward a ghost of a window. In the corner, a handwritten title. "Still Orchid." "You painted this for me?" I asked, voice barely steady. She nodded. "You don't look like someone who left," she whispered. "You look like someone who began again." I couldn't speak. I just reached out and gently squeezed her hand. When the small exhibition began, Dolores nudged me toward the podium. "Go on," she said. "They're waiting." So I stood. Not as someone's mother. Not as someone's wife. As Miss Langley. Artist. Mentor. Just me. The faces in the crowd were warm. A few familiar. A few brand new. Nora stood at the front. Watching. Hoping. "I used to think starting over meant going back to who I was," I said. "But it doesn't. It means becoming who you were meant to be. After everything else has stripped you bare." I looked at Nora. At all of them. This part is mine." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was enough. Later that evening, I walked to the Skyview garden. The earth was cold, but not frozen. Not yet. I knelt, pressed my palm into the soil until it gave. And there, I planted a single orchid. Its stem was delicate, but its roots held firm. Behind me, I heard quiet steps. Nora. She didn't say anything. She just reached for my hand. Held it as I stood. The scent of snow and pine wrapped around us like a memory. Somewhere in the distance, carolers were warming up. Back in my room, I saw it through the window, the orchid I had sketched on Thanksgiving. Now in full bloom. Not alone. Just beginning. Somewhere between silence and snow, I found a kind of strength that doesn't shout or demand, but steadies you quietly, when you think you might fall. I used to think love meant always saying yes. Always giving. Always staying. But I've learned, if you forget to honor yourself, even the people you love the most may forget to honor you, too. Like an old armchair, worn and sturdy, tucked in a quiet corner, once the center of comfort, now overlooked. Until one day, someone finally sits and understands what it's held up all these years. So if this story touched something in you, maybe take a moment. Reach out to someone who's always been there. Even in the quiet. Because sometimes, the warmest kind of love is the kind that finally turns inward.